Today I'm taking a look at I Won't Back Down from Tom Petty. A pretty simple tune to play. It just has a couple of parts, but I'm going to cover 3 guitar parts from the song. The main chunky electric one that you just heard me playing, also the open chords with the shimmering chorusy type sound, and also the slide guitar solo, which is pretty sweet, okay? So let's get started with this first guitar, which is just the one you just heard me playing, all right? So it's pretty simple. We have a basic power chord at the 7th fret, an E5 chord, 7th fret on the A string, 9th fret on the D string, okay? And then we're just doing straight 8th notes, sort of like the Cars, a la the Cars, but we're palm muting back here. Not overly so, but just enough to kind of make the chord pop a little bit, give it a little staccato percussive sound. Okay, and like I said, we have an 8th note feel, but what we're playing is this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So as you can see, I moved the power chord to the 5th fret, and then to the top 2 strings, the 6th string at the 3rd fret, and the 5th string at the 5th fret, okay? And that chord, the G power chord, we've got an E power chord, D power chord, G power chord, lands on the upbeat of 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's really important to grab the pocket that they're playing with. And you'll do that 2 times before the vocal comes in, okay? And then once the vocal comes in, that's what we'll talk about right here. You're going to play it twice when the vocal comes in. And then on the 3rd time, we're going to travel from the E power chord to the D power chord to the C power chord, and those will be straight 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. One more time. So there's no grabbing an upbeat, everything is on the downbeat. And then we come back and play the E to the D to the G with that upbeat kick again 1 time, and that makes up what we call the verse. Repeat the whole thing, okay? But we build it at the end as we get into the chorus. So what we're doing on that second go around is we are adding an extra E, D, and G to it as we build into the chorus, okay? But that's just on the second go around. So let's talk about how you get into that chorus. Again, we've got that extra go around with the E, the D, and the G. And then when we hit the G, we start opening it up, releasing the muting and letting the chord start to build. So let's talk a little bit how that works on the chorus, how the rhythm works, okay? We have that extra go around of the E, the D to the G, and we start building it on the G, and the timing is like so. So we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. okay? And that's where you kick off to the C power chord, 3rd fret on the A string, 5th fret on the D string. So the timing on that is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and just like that. As you build off of that G chord, okay? Then once we're into it, this is what we're playing. So we're moving from C to G, back to C, so that's 5th fret, or excuse me, 3rd fret on the A string, 5th fret on the D string for the C chord, and then move it up to the first 2 strings for the G chord, back to C, and then we go to D as well, which is the 5th fret on the A string and 7th fret on the D string. And again, the timing on that, which I'm sure you can see and hear as I'm playing it, but just to play it nice and slow for you. So that rhythm, if you slice it up and individualize it, you have, and then the same thing from D back to G. Again, C to G, D to G, C to G again, and then they sit on the D for a full complete rhythm cycle. And then you go right back to, and then the whole thing repeats from the verse, okay? So let me play the whole thing for you nice and slow so that it hopefully makes solid sense from the verse. Second verse. Thing from the verse again. So before we move to the next guitar part, just a quick note on the tone here. I'm definitely using the treble pickup on my telly. The tone is wide open, the volume's wide open, but it's just a pinch of distortion. Right? It's not a heavy sort of, thick distortion. It's just enough to make it chunk up a little bit. So again, you don't need a lot of distortion, but just enough to give it a little bit of an edge, okay? So let's get on to the second guitar part. So let's get into that second guitar part, which is played very clean. It's interesting, in the original video for this, you see Tom Petty playing acoustic guitar, and there may be some acoustic guitar blended in with everything else, but you can definitely hear that shimmering electric guitar, maybe a 12-string Rickenbacker or even a 6-string with some chorusing on it. But you want a clean tone, so I'm just going to do it on my telly and keep the tone really clean. And we're just going to have 4 simple chords. We're going to have E minor, D, and G. And then we'll also have E minor, D, and C, okay? But we want to cop that same rhythm, that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 as we move to the G chord. same way, but with open strumming, right, instead of that type of rhythm. But it's still the same. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So on the E minor, it's straight eighth notes, 1 and 2 and. On the D chord, 3 and 4, and then catching the G with the upstroke for that eighth note feel. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then 1, at least in your right hand, viewing it strumming wise, is silent, and then you pick it up from there. And what I mean by that is and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you're going to have two double strokes, upstrokes I should say. So when you put it all together, nice and slow. From E minor to D to C, it's all right on the beat, just like you did with the power chords. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And I'm playing my C with that G in the bass just because I like the way it sounds nice and thick. But you can just use a regular C. It's going to sound great too. All together. And then of course you're going to repeat that. But as with the power chords, that second go around of the verse, they add the extra E minor, D and G to it, and then jump off into the chorus with the same type of rhythm. So that last go around would be let's talk about it. It's the same rhythm for that very last one before we go into the, right? And so what we play is E minor, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. Ending with that upstroke, just like we did with the power chords, and then we kick on the C, back to the G, and then back to the C. So we have what's important with this is to stay with this strumming despite those kicks. So in other words, when you come off of that G, you'll hit that C with a downstroke and come back and hit the G with an upstroke. Very important for keeping a smooth rhythm. Once again. And then we land back on the C, okay? Noticed I hit that C with an upstroke because that is an upbeat in the rhythm. So it's up, up, down, up, down. So let me do that real slow, putting that rhythm together from the G. And so you'll hit that G with an upstroke as well. And then to D. And you notice the strumming and the rhythm is exactly the same. Up, up, down, up. And then on the last one, strumming the D out for the full measure, just like we did with the power chords once again. It's really important to keep that flow going. You know, you don't want to go, mixing it up. Otherwise, you kind of lose that cool rhythm, that continuity of the rhythm, okay? So let me play the last go around where we play the E minor, the D, and the G, and then the E minor, the D, and the G again, going into those chords, into those kicks. And then you repeat the whole thing, okay? So let me play it from the start, at the risk of being tedious, but I think it's really important. You can just skip past this if you want to. But from that very first verse. Second verse. Everything repeats, and the song just becomes a giant loop, including the guitar solo, the slide guitar solo, which is just running through the song, a bit of the verse again. At the end of the song, they do double the chorus, but I trust you can pick that out from the original recording. So let's talk about that slide guitar part as well. Now I'm doing this in standard tuning. I don't see any need to retune or anything. You can play all of the lines, including the main solo, just using standard tuning, okay? So there's a simple little slide intro, if you will. There's not much to it, but a bit about the tone. I've definitely got a bit of edge on this, more than I used on the rhythm guitar part, so it's a little bit more distortion to get that gain going. I'm on the treble pickup, tone, volume, everything all the way up, and I've also got a little bit of delay on it, which you can clearly hear on the original recording. So you can see on the tab what I'm playing, but what you can see in the video and here is that it's a pretty wide vibrato, okay? So you're really going below the note and above it with a lot of movement. And then we hear it quick. So that's just pulling from the 12th to the 10th, and then 12 on the G string. You could also play that last note at the 8th fret if you want to stay on the same string. But you get a little bit different sound, okay? And then the song is in, so let's talk about the actual slide solo. And once again, I'm doing this in standard tuning, but you can definitely use an open tuning if you prefer. What I tend to do with slide solos, particularly short slide solos like this, is unless it's really imperative that you use the open tuning, I just try to stay in standard tuning, which comes in handy, especially if you're playing live, right? Because you got to cop the other guitar parts and then go to the slide solo. So I kind of adopt that, and this is definitely one of those solos where I feel like you can just stay in standard tuning, okay? So let's get into it. Again, there's heavy vibratos on these long sustained notes, pretty wide vibratos, I should say. So we start off with this. So you can see it on the tab, but what we have is a slide from the 10th to the 12th fret on that first string, and again, with that wide vibrato. And that's similar to what we played out the gate, right? Sliding quickly from 12 to 10 on the B string, and then 12th fret on the G string, okay? So we have and then all on the G string. You can see it on the tab. We have, and again with that vibrato, maybe more than what I'm using right here actually. But that's one stroke of the pick, so you want to have pretty reasonable sustain and gain on the amp. And then we have, so sliding from 10 to 12 on the B string, 10th fret on the first E string, and back to 12. And then right on the downbeat. And that's kind of a cool way to do it in standard tuning, okay? So I'm sliding from the G string to, sliding on the G string from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret. And then 3rd fret on the B string. Then back 4 to open on the G string. So we have, all right, so the whole solo once again. So there you go with I Won't Back Down from Tom Petty with some nice guitar parts. It's a pretty easy tune to play. Of course, if you've never played slide before, you can always bypass that or use this as a jumping off point, if you will. If you haven't played slide and you're interested in it, just look up my slide guitar lesson right here on my channel. It's got a lot of really helpful tips on how to get started on slide, okay? So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. My first Tom Petty video. All right, so we'll see everybody very soon.